In this screencast I'm going to walk through the steps of installing ArchivesSpace on a freshly installed machine. So I've just set up a virtual machine using Vagrant, which is a great way of setting up a fresh virtual machine for testing on. And I've only just done a Vagrant up, so the machine is ready to go, and if I do a Vagrant SSH it should drop me into a shell. And I'm in. So this machine is effectively as if I'd just done a Linux install from scratch, so there's literally nothing on here. I'll start by installing MySQL and we'll see how far I get here. So I'm going to switch to a root shell just for convenience, and let's just see if we can figure out what the MySQL package for Red Hat is called. So it looks like we want MySQL Server, so I'm just going to install that. I should say MySQL because people say MySQL. MySQL Server. High-speed Australian internet right here, folks. Okay, so with any luck I can now turn MySQL on. How do I do that? Disaster. Okay, so that's us up and running. Let's follow the advice here and set a root password. Okay, so now I've got MySQL, let's install a user for ArchivesSpace. So I should now be able to log in using the password I just set. And I can say create database, I'll call it ArchivesSpace because that's what I usually do. And we'll just make sure that the database is using UTF-8. And now that we've done that, we can grant permission to a user on that database. So grant all on ArchivesSpace.star to AS at localhost identified by AS123. So this is straight out of the README. Once we've done that, we can drop out of MySQL. And the next thing I'm going to do is add a Unix user that will run ArchivesSpace under. So you can run it under root, but it's normally a good idea to run things as their own users. So I'm just going to say, and I'll probably get this wrong for Red Hat, add user ArchivesSpace. Oh, that actually appears to have worked. If I switch to the ArchivesSpace user I just created, do I have a home directory? Oh, I do, look at that. Thank you, Red Hat. The way that Vagrant sets things up is it creates this share under /Vagrant, and you can see I've put a couple of files in here. So I've got archivespace.zip is just the downloaded ArchivesSpace distribution, and we also have Java. So actually, before I do anything else, I'm going to install Java because that's pretty much our only dependency. So I've just downloaded this from the Oracle website, and I'm just going to unpack it into user local. Oops. I'm sorry, I've got jar on the brain. And that's them to index. Most systems you'll use will already have Java installed, so you won't need to worry about this step. But that's good. So I've got Java 1.7. So let's switch back to the ArchivesSpace user now. I don't need to sudo it. And let's unzip the distribution package, which I wonder if we have unzip installed. We'll find out. That is brutal. Take two. Okay, so we have our ArchivesSpace installation now unpacked. One thing I'll do straight away is edit ArchivesSpace.sh, and I'm just going to tell it to run this as the ArchivesSpace user. So we have a directory here called ArchivesSpace user, and one easy way of doing this is just to say user equals ArchivesSpace. From here, let's just verify that I can connect to MySQL as my ArchivesSpace user, which I just set up before. Okay, that's looking good. So our next step is to edit our configuration file and just tell it where to find our database. So we have db_url here, which defaults to the demo database, but we're going to change this to use MySQL. And we do that by just providing the JDBC connection parameter. So we can say JDBC MySQL / localhost 3306 ArchivesSpace user equals AS password equals AS123, and we have a couple of mysterious parameters here for setting Unicode, just to make sure that we don't end up messing up multi-byte characters. And again, this stuff is all straight from the README, so I'm actually cheating by looking at it here. I don't just remember this stuff. Once we've done that, what's next? We need the MySQL client library. So licensing issues will prevent us from shipping ArchivesSpace with this connector, even though we'd really like to. But you'll find in the README we have a URL for it, and this file just needs to go under your lib directory. And I probably don't have wget. Oh, I do. Okay, sorry Red Hat. So we'll grab that file, and that's given us the JDBC MySQL connector, which is good. Now we should be ready to try setting up our database. So there's a script called setupdatabase.sh, and it will read the URL that we've just put into our config and use the MySQL connector to connect to the database and create all the tables we need. So hopefully this works. And it didn't. It's not that surprising. Nothing ever works first time. What have we got? Incorrect database name ArchivesSpace. This points to a typo. Oh geez. What have I done here? It's probably a good idea to copy and paste from the README instead of typing it in like an idiot. Okay, this is looking more plausible. So this should now be creating all of the tables and all of the indexes and all of that wonderful stuff. And that's done. So if I reconnect to the database now as my ArchivesSpace user, you can see we have some tables, so that's good. We could now try starting it up, so let's do that. If we just run /archivespace.sh with no parameters, it's going to run it in foreground mode. And we should see as it starts up, it starts logging some things. So you can see the first time you run it, it generates a couple of secrets. These get used for encrypting session cookies with Rails applications, and by default Rails puts a generated value in a config file, but because we want the value to be different for every user, we automatically generate these for you on startup. And you can usually just rely on the automatically generated copies of these things. The only exception is if you're running in clustered mode, you need the key to be the same across all servers, so you may want to explicitly set it, but for our purposes this is fine. You can see Sol is just starting up now, and here goes the backend. There's the indexer. and finally the front end. So that's the entire system now running. I'm just going to Control-C and shut that down. And one final thing we might like to do is to have the ArchivesSpace system come up when the server starts. So we can do that simply by switching out back to our root user, and if we jump to /etc init.d, we can just symlink the home ArchivesSpace ArchivesSpace.sh script into the init.d directory. And this ArchivesSpace script actually doubles as an init script, so it has this metadata at the top you can see, and that's enough to tell Red Hat what to do with it. So we should now be able to use chkconfig, which I can never remember the syntax for. We should be able to say something along the lines of... See, I'm sure there's a defaults option too, but anyway, level 3 ArchivesSpace on. And that will set it so that when the system starts up in its default run level, which is rc3.d, you'll see somewhere here, third from the bottom, we have the ArchivesSpace script is also going to run. And if I run that now as root, we should see that this works as well. So you can see ArchivesSpace has started, and if I got that initial setting right, we should see it's running as our ArchivesSpace user and not as root, which it is, 502. I'm not seeing it mapped, but that's looking good. And if we jump to home ArchivesSpace and look under our ArchivesSpace logs directory, we should see that that is now logging to this file as it starts up. And so now if we were to reboot this virtual machine, we should see ArchivesSpace come up happily. So that's my unedited and clumsy version of setting up ArchivesSpace. For a much smoother experience, you could read the README file, which I also wrote, but I removed the errors, as opposed to the screencast where I just babble at you. Thank you for watching.